Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another AP Environmental Science screencast with your AP Environmental Science teacher, Mr. Stano. Last time we left off, we were talking about basically how populations will change, or their numbers will change depending on a number of conditions, whether resources, predator-prey interactions, or just really resource availability. And today we're going to kind of keep moving forward with the same idea, or how populations change within communities. So white-tailed deer, for example, were hunted quite a bit, and then all of a sudden we had major control on them, usually with a tagging process or a permit process, and now their population has exploded in the United States, and also we became less dependent on it. So population blows up. We have probably over 30 million white-tailed deer in the United States now, and they cause a number of issues, such as we have deer vehicle collisions, transmitting disease, even a number of things like grazing on crops, all these things that are affecting us because their population has exploded, because now their pressures are off of them. What we can also look at with that deer population is reproductive patterns, just how they actually reproduce. Some species, as we know, reproduce asexually. In this type of scenario, offspring are usually genetic copies of their parents or clones. And if there's any sort of mutation that occurred, that may get passed down too. But for the most part, they're identical copies of the parents. Others reproduce by having sex. So there are some advantages and disadvantages to this. The genetic material is a mixture of two individuals, so what we'll see is the gene pool, the genetic diversity, will increase because of this. Disadvantages, though, males don't give birth, only the females do. So we have that split roles right there between males and females. Also, we see an increased chance of genetic errors occurring because of this, and defects. And courtship and mating rituals can be costly, which we'll go over some examples in class. Like I said, the major advantages, genetic diversity, but all diversity, and also protection for the offspring, depending on the type of organism. So courtship rituals, so we can see in this peacock, consume a huge amount of time and energy, but also can transmit disease and inflict injury on males, especially when they're competing for sexual partners. There are some species where it's really extreme and others not so much, but we see it here with birds in general that this is definitely going to be the case, and a number of other organisms too. There are reproductive patterns with organisms. Now remember, we talked about R and K on the actual population growth curve here, and you'll see now kind of where they come into effect. Our R selected species right here show this J-shaped curve. Right here, almost like an exponential growth curve. Here, they have large number of small offspring with little parental care. So insects are typically good R-selected species. K-selected species up here, K because they reach or they hang out near that carrying capacity, usually larger offspring, fewer offspring with higher investment in parental care. Humans, for example, are K-selected species, and or have that ability that we're maintaining around that carrying capacity. So you can see where the R and K is. R basically, like there's nothing stopping them, limitless resources, and they have that exponential growth. K selected, usually hanging out right around the carrying capacity. There is a limit on the resources. These are just some different patterns that we see between R and K selected species. Like we said with the R selected, smaller offspring, early reproductive age, also adapted to unstable climate, environmental conditions. So they're able to kind of move along within those times when there's a lot of change. High population growth rate, that's R selected. Usually are generalists, and low ability to compete, so usually they can get kind of pushed around a little bit. R-selected species tend to be opportunists. Any resources or new availability of resources will cause that population to grow relatively quickly. Versus our K-selected species tend to be competitors. So we're looking at things that are finding or going for fewer resources. So once again, larger offspring, larger adults too, low population growth rate. They're typically specialists, but a high ability to compete. And these are typically would see them. And also later reproductive age, and you can see here from the two charts some more characteristics of them. We can also have survivorship curves. So right now we looked at basically births. Now we can also combine that with deaths. We have late loss population. So these are organisms that live to an old age. Constant loss populations, or type 2 survivorship, and I'll go over the numbers in a second again. And then we have early loss population, where they die at young ages. And we get these curves right here. So here with our late loss, right here you can see that the organism, they give birth, typically they'll stay around, and it's not until later age in life that they drop off. Constant loss, like birds, they'll have a clutch of about 2 to 3, but they can pretty much, the ability to die or the chance of dying is typically the same all the way through. This is a type 2 curve. And then our early loss right here is our type 3. So type 1 curve, late loss. Constant loss, type 2 survivorship curve. Early loss, a lot of fish and insect species, are type 3. So our type 3, they give birth to a lot of young. Most of them die. The few that do live will make it out to the end of their life. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this screencast on population ecology. Pretty much it for Unit 5. Take care. Have a good night.